Hi everybody, happy Father's Day. So hopefully everything will work tonight because there was a Windows update last night that I told it to not do it and it did it anyway. So we will see. How is everybody tonight? Hi Lisa. Hopefully all the comments are coming through and everything like that. So let's see, after all the Windows updates. Lisa made it. Uh-oh, my comment just disappeared. So make sure you say something when you come in because I want to make sure that everything's working. We'll see. All right, so it stayed that time. So make sure you say something when you come in. Can you hear me okay? Nothing's coming through. So my comments keep disappearing. Oh, yours are coming through though. That's good. Oh, can everybody hear me okay? Give me some thumbs ups or something. Let me know. I see you saw my comments? Okay. Is everybody hearing me okay? Hi, Pat. You can see and hear me okay. All right, awesome. I never know when there's Windows updates, and they also have this new, Facebook has this new live producer thing, and it's a little different, so it's an adventure every week, so you never know. Great, everybody's hearing me. Hi, Clara. And Lisa, you saw my comments. Okay, it's just not showing my comments to me. Maybe it doesn't like it. I don't know. And people are saying good evening. Oh, cool. So everybody have a nice Father's Day? I went up and saw my dad, and we had a nice lunch. We made steaks on the grill, and then we took a ride and had ice cream in the rain. It was so nice to see the rain. We had it was a really nice, just solid, steady rain up there. So, okay, so it looks like people are coming in. I keep losing people though. First it says it's 6, and then it says it's 7, and then it says it's 5. So I don't know how many people are actually here. Denise is here. Clara's here. Jan's here. Okay. We'll wait just a couple minutes yet. We have a lot to do tonight, so we're going to actually start with the scan and cut. I cut out a little bit of my pillow with my scan and cut. So I don't have my pillow here with me, so I'll show you on the picture. So we're going to cut out America here with the scan and cut. You do not have to. So if you don't have the scan and cut, you don't have to. It's just that this was very intricate, and I didn't want to have to trim it in the hoop. It takes too long. It is not impossible. You can trim it in the hoop. So it is set up so you can do that. But we are actually going to cut this out with a scan and cut quickly and do this. And then I'm going to show you how to mark the top and get the first hooping. So now this is a multi-hooped design, and I'm going to use my 9.5 by 14 hoop. So in the 9.5 by 14, there's one hooping here for America, Land That I Love, and the stars, and then there's 2 hoopings up here for the pennants. If you have a smaller machine, like an 8 by 12 or a 6 by 10 machine, there's a separate set of instructions for the smaller hoop, and you can do it in a 6 by 10. You do it the same way, but you just have to hoop it a couple more times. So it's not hard at all, but you just have to go by those instructions, print those instructions out instead of the ones for the 9.5 by 14 hoop, and then you'll just I think you have to hoop it 5 times instead of 3. Okay? So it's done exactly the same way. It's very self-explanatory. So you can just print off the other instructions, and then you read it and do it the same way that you do it, that I'm going to do this one tonight with the 9.5 by 14 hoop, okay? So it's very simple. It's just that you have to do it a couple, I think it was either 5 or 6 hoopings, but I think it's 5 hoopings, okay? All right, so this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to first cut out America on the scan and cut, and for those of you who have been taking my classes for a while, there are a lot of I have a lot of videos about cutting fabric, so you can go to YouTube And so along with Jan, the YouTube channel, and if you go under the playlist called Scan and Cut, Brothers Scan and Cut, all of the fabric cutting videos are there. So you can go back and watch. So I'm not going to do real detailed tonight. I'm just going to cut out this fabric so that I have my applique piece, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to flip the camera around here. Second, I got to scoot back in my chair. I'm going to fall off the chair. We're going to turn this around on the Scan and Cut. So we're going to start over here with the Scan and Cut, and we're going to do a little, pull my camera up just a little bit, and I'm going to bring this a little closer to me so I can see better. Okay. They changed this this live producer, so it's really hard now. The picture that I'm looking at is like really small, and so I have a hard time adjusting the camera now. Okay, so with this design set, they gave you an SVG file that you can cut out your stuff. And about a week or so ago, I put up a video I uploaded a video to Facebook that showed you how to take that SVG file into Canvas Workspace and break it apart, because the SVG file comes in one piece. And I put that up there so you could watch it. So if you haven't seen it, you can go back and watch it, okay? And the SVG file, when it comes into the machine, our Scan and Cut, it is not the native format. So it won't let me like break apart the SVG into pieces. So I have to do that in the software and then send what I want to my Scan and Cut. So that's what I've done here, and that's what I did in the video. So for me to retrieve what I did online now, hi Deb, I'm just going to hit retrieve or retrieve data, and I did that on my Scan and Cut, and I sent it to my machine wirelessly because my machine's wireless. So I'm going to hit the little wireless icon here. And that was the last thing I sent to my software. So I hopefully, if I can get a little closer, I have a hard time with Scan and Cut because it glares. So you can kind of see the little America right here. It's right along here. Okay, it's the whole word. On the 9.5 by 14, it'll be the whole word. On the 6 by 10 version, you'll have to do America in 2 hoopings. Okay, so yours will come in differently for that. You'll have to do it in 2 hoopings. But I'm going to cut this whole thing out. I'm sorry you can't see it better. It's always hard with the Scan and Cut because you're looking at the screen. If I tip it a little bit, maybe you can see it. Okay, so I've got my America here. Now when they gave us a piece of fabric, with the fabric that they told you to cut out was like 6 inches wide. So when I brought in, here's my piece of fabric, and when I brought it in, it's like bigger than 6 inches because it's kind of tipped this way. And I was like, oh great, so now I'm not going to have enough fabric, but I thought this has to fit because that's the size they told you. So what I ended up doing here was I took this is also right now so you can read America. And remember, when I cut fabric, I always cut it face down. So I need to mirror it. So the first thing I need to do is mirror this. So I'm going to go to Edit over here. I think you can see me doing this. The Edit. And then I'm going to go to Object Edit. And I'm going to click on the Mirror button. It's the 2 little arrows pointing in. So the first thing I'm going to do is mirror it. So now it actually fits fairly close in my 6 by 10 or my 6 inch wide area. I can tell on my mat, but it's still a little bit, it doesn't fit quite the way I wanted it. So the other thing I had to do is I took my rotate key and then I just rotated it about 1 degree at a time until it was rotated enough that it still stayed 12 inches long, but then it would fit in my 6 inch area. So like, you know, the mat has a line vertical and horizontal in the center, and that's 6 inches on one side and 6 inches on the other side. So I just rotated it just about 3 or 4 degrees so that it would fit in that area. on my piece of fabric, because they told me to cut my fabric 6 inches wide, and I thought, well, that's not going to fit, but then if you just rotate it a little bit, it does. So now it is mirrored and rotated so that it will fit on my 12 by 12 mat. Otherwise, it's a little bit long. Okay, so on the fabric, and we've talked about this before, I'm going to pull this camera back just a little bit. On the fabric, we've talked about this before. I have on the back of my fabric heat and bond light, and it has to be fused to your fabric, and you need to have that on there to cut with the scan and cut. Or if you're cutting and you don't want any bonding agent, this is a bonding agent, you can use that Terrial Magic, because the fabric needs to be very, very stable. Okay, so I am going to use heat and bond light. I've got it ironed onto the back of my fabric here, so here's the heat and bond light on this side. Here's my fabric. Okay, I'm using the fabric, I think it was fabric 2 or 3, that's the same one as the little polka dot stripes on my pillow. I'll hold the picture up here, it's easier. So these little stripes right here along the edge, that's the same fabric that I used for my America. Okay, and now I'm going to put this on my mat. So I have my fabric mat. They have a fabric mat now for these scan and cuts, and they're really sticky, so you don't have to put those adhesive sheets on your mat anymore. And I really like that, because then it's so much easier to, you don't have to stick those sheets on and keep them clean anymore. So if you have one of the SDX models, you know, like the 225, the 230D, you can get one of these fabric mats now. If you don't have one, I'd tell you buy it, because it's so much easier to manipulate it. You don't have to use those papers anymore. All right, so I'm going to put get this out of the way here. I'm going to put my fabric on my mat, and I have my design up in this left-hand corner kind of, and I'm going to make sure my fabric is up there where I have my design rotated so it will fit. And then I'm also going to take my brayer. So here's my favorite tool, and I'm going to use my brayer on my fabric to make sure it is well adhered to the fabric mat. And that is very, very important when cutting fabric. You don't want your fabric moving around on you when you're trying to cut it, okay? All right, so I've got it down really well. All right, now I'm going to load my mat. Let me pull the camera around this way a little bit more. And like I've always done, I take my hand and spread it out in front of the roller, and then I'm going to hit the mat button up here. And I leave my hand there so that I know that my mat loads very flat and doesn't twist. Okay, so now I have a special, this is my standard auto blade. Now this is one thing that you need to understand, which blade you use to cut fabric. You need to use, for most fabric with the bonding agent, heat and bond, you need to use the black standard auto blade, okay? I have a special blade that I use. I have a separate holder and blade that I only use for fabric. And see, I've got it marked here that I only use this one for fabric, okay? So I'm going to put my fabric blade in. There is a thin fabric blade that is tan that is used when you do not have a bonding agent on your fabric, okay? So I'm going to use the standard auto blade, which is the black one that we use most of the time. I'm going to put that into my machine. Make sure that this is good and stuck down. I'm going to hit OK on my screen here. And one more time. And OK one more time. And I have to hit one more time. And I know this is going to fit because I've got it on the screen and I've got my fabric in the same spot. I didn't need to scan this time. I'm going to hit please select, and I want to cut. Now I can do a test cut if I want to. I don't think I need to, but I can show you how to do it. We're going to hit the test button. And we're going to choose a shape. The center button here lets you choose whatever shape you want. I'm just going to choose a square, that's fine. And then we'll click OK. And right now it's way up here. Well, that's not going to work very well because my fabric's over on the other side. So then you hit the little arrows here that allow you to move that where you want. So I need to move it down. And then I'm going to move it over to the left, and just so that it won't hit my America anywhere. I don't want it to hit my words. So I'm going to put it over there. Click OK. And then when you hit start, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to cut that little test cut so you know that it's okay. And then it will stop and ask her, is it all right? Did it cut okay? And then you can hit start again. So I'm just going to let it do the test cut. I hit start. I'm going to move this back so you can watch it cut, hopefully. So it's just going to do that little test cut. And with this blade, I don't usually test cut, but I wanted you to see how to do it. Okay, and then it test cut right down here. I don't think you can quite see it on the camera. I'm just going to check to make sure that it cut through it okay. And there's my little square. Okay, so it looks like it did a good job. And then it says test completed. To cut this pattern, press start to test again. So if it didn't cut, then you can go adjust if you need to. But mine cut fine. So I'm just going to hit the start button. And we're going to cut out the word America. Now I know this is real quick, but I just wanted you to see me do this. If you're going to cut it in the hoop, that is fine. It was just a little intricate for me. I like to cut these. I like to cut this type of real intricate small stuff in the scan and cut and then lay it into the placement line. I find it works better for me. So I'll get this roll out of the way. So I have a lot to show you tonight. So are there any questions so far while this is cutting? It does take a minute for it to cut. I think the scan and cut does an excellent job cutting fabric. I've cut a lot of fabric with it, and I like cutting small, intricate stuff like this with the scan and cut. It just makes it so easy to put it in, and then it really turns out well. It's very accurate. Hopefully you can see it cutting. But this way, what I did, and I did that in the video that I pre-recorded, so if you haven't seen that, go watch it. It's just a few minutes. But I took out the stars. So like the America was stuck on the SVG file with all these stars and everything. But see, I wanted them in different fabrics, so I didn't want to cut it all out at the same time. So I wanted them separated from one another. And that's why I took it into my software and just got America. Okay? And then I took these away, and those I'm just going to trim in the hoop because they're such simple. You could cut all of these. There's SVGs for all the pennants and for the stars if you want, and I just wanted to do America. Okay, so if you want to cut them all out on the scan and cut, do that. That's just fine. But these are such simple ones, I often just trim those in the hoop. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm done, and I'm going to eject the hoop. And what I'm going to do now, you can see it's cut on here. Just pull this camera back a little bit. I'm going to close this. We have to do a lot of manipulating today because I need this table for something else too. Okay, so I'm going to pull this down, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this off. And honestly, I'm going to leave this on the mat until I'm about ready to use it, so I don't lose any of the pieces, because as you can see, there's some little teeny tiny little circles down here. And then here's the little star up here, so I don't want to lose anything. I'm just going to leave it on the mat, and then I've got my little weeding tool, and I'm just going to get that little piece out of the middle of the A. And there's one in the E here. And then there's this bigger piece up here in the A. Take those all out. And that looks pretty good. So I think until I'm ready to put this on the pillow, I think I'm just going to leave it right here on my mat, okay? All right, so we put these in the garbage. And the next thing I need to do is I'm going to show you how to mark your pillow top that we quilted last week, and I'm going to show you how to get it hooped, okay? Remember, this is a multi-hoop design. So I'm going to go ahead and turn my scan and cut off. And if you give me just a second, I'm going to go around the other side, and I am going to, actually, I'm going to raise this up. I'm going to put the scan and cut down on the floor because I need to use this for my hoops now. So give me just a second. I got to dip under my cords. And I just need to put this down on the floor. Okay. This requires a lot of cords and stuff, so. All right. So I'm just going to leave that on the mat. We'll set that aside so I don't stick anything to it. And here is my quilted top. Pull this down so you can see. All right. Now what I have done, and I don't know if you can see it too well because I did this about an hour or two ago, and you know how I took a water-soluble marker, and you know it's kind of humid, so things kind of disappear on me. So what they tell you to do in the book, and it does this for each one, so if you're doing the smaller hoop, you will need to have the other instructions, and it tells you what to do, and it's the same, but you will just have to do more marks, okay, since this is multi-hoop. So what it tells you to do, I'm going to, whoops, got to get to the first page. First is you find the center, horizontal center and vertical center, which I have done here, and I've marked those across and down. It also tells you to mark the top of your pillow. So what I did is I put a little mark up here with an arrow pointing up. So this is the top of my pillow. Okay. Then you have to put in where the centers of your, in this case, 3 designs, and if you're doing the smaller one, I think it's 5, where those centers are going to be. So we have something to hoop to. Okay, so it gives you a little chart here. That number 1, this is going to be the bigger one, that where America's going to be down here on the pillow, because we can see, we'll look at the picture here. Okay, so we're doing this one here first. You measure down 2 3/4 from the horizontal line, and then 2 3/4 inches from the vertical line across. So in other words, I took my ruler and I measured from the center mark 2 3/4 inches and marked, and then I took it down from my 2 3/4 inches from the center, the horizontal center line, and marked. So here's my mark that I'm going to be using for hooping number 1. For hooping number 2, that's going to be those pennants. So I'm going to have 2 hoopings for my pennants. It does these, and then it does these. Okay? So hooping number 2 is going to be 1 inch over from the horizontal center, the vertical center, and then it's going to be 3 3/4 inches up from the horizontal center. So I've got those marked. So I marked up 3 3/4 inches here, and I marked over from the center 1 inch. So here's my mark up here. Okay, I know you can't see them very well because they, you know how water-soluble markers like to disappear when in the air. So, okay, and then the third hooping, which will be more pennants, over here. Over here, I'm going to go to. It says it needs to be 7 1/4 inches to the right of the horizontal center here, okay, and I'm going to go 7, whoops, have my ruler upside down, 7 1/4 inches over here, and then it's going to be up 2 1/4 inches, okay. So the first thing you have to do is just mark those centers, and like I said, if you're using the 6 by 10 hooping, I don't have both sets of instructions printed out, but if you're using that set instead, you will have to do about 5 marks, but it's done the same way, okay? So does everybody understand what I've done here? Is I've marked, these are going to be my centers for my 3 hoopings on this pillow. And it's very clearly marked in the book. The book is very good, and it gives you a little chart right here. And then on the next page, it gives you a nice picture. Shows you going over 1 inch up here and up 3 3/4, and then down here it's 2 3/4 and 2 3/4, okay? And then over here you're over 7 inches, okay? So just go by the numbers. If you're doing the smaller one, it's the same way. Just go by the numbers that you are using. It'll give you different dimensions if you're using the smaller hoop, all right? Because you'll have to hoop more times. Okay, so now we're ready to hoop. We've got our marks made, you know, our vertical and horizontal center, and we've got the marks for the center made, okay? Now we're ready to hoop. Now if you look at the picture here, it shows you the orientation. So like when I go to my machine, my pillow is going to be hooped actually like this, up and down, all right? So that's why you wanted to mark the top, so you know where the top always is, so you have everything in the correct orientation. That's the only thing you have to watch a little bit, but it's neat because they give you a picture with the little thing that goes into the machine, so you know then it's going to be like this in the machine, okay? So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to show you 2 different ways to hoop. I'm going to show you one way with a magnetic hoop, and we're going to use the snowman tonight. A lot of you have that snowman feature on your machines. They go all the way back to the Quattro. So a lot of you have that snowman feature. And a lot of people tell me, oh, I don't know how to use that. I'm going to show you how to use it tonight. It's very, very simple, and it's super quick when you're doing this type of multi-hooping. Okay? But if you don't have a snowman feature on your machine, and there's people that don't, you can use I would recommend you use your standard hoop. It's a little easier with a standard hoop because, you know, these standard hoops have these grids with them, these plastic grids. And I'm not going to hoop this with any stabilizer in it, just so you know. We're going to use some more stabilizer, but I'm not going to hoop it with the stabilizer. I'm just going to turn this, because remember, this is the side, but remember it has to go up and down, like this. So I'm going to turn it to the side, and here's my mark. And if I do not have the snowman feature, I'm going to take my standard hoop, and I'm going to put my plastic grid in it. And you want to be able to read the word or the letters ABC on the bottom. So make sure you have it in correctly, otherwise the lines will be off. Then I'm going to lay this down on top of that mark. I'm going to put the center mark that I put right in the center of that grid. I need to make sure that my hoop is loose enough here. I'm going to lay this over, and then you can see it's not going to hoop much on the side, but that's okay. I'm just going to pick this up, and you could use that tape that we talked about last week. That works pretty well. I've done this so many times without the tape, I can pretty much get it in here. Okay? So I'm going to push this down into the hoop, and I can see that I'm still on my mark. My mark's right there. My grid's there. Okay? Just like that. And then I'm going to tighten this hoop up, and I'm ready to go. All right, so see how easy that was? And that tape we talked about last week is nice because you can stick it on the back of the hoop, and then it will stick to your fabric, so if you have trouble picking it up. I've done it so many times I can just pick it up without it. And then I would tighten this up, and we'd be ready to go. All right? So that is one way. So those of you with like the 3600Ds, the smaller machines, maybe like the 1600s that only have a 6x10 hoop, this is the way you'll have to do it. Just get the plastic grid out for your biggest hoop, put it in, and then lay it right down on that mark, and you'll be just good to go. Okay? So for those of us lucky to have that snowman feature, there's a bunch of us that have that. I'm going to take this back out, and we're going to use a snap hoop. When I do these, I often like to use a snap hoop because I just need to get it close. It doesn't need to be exact when I hoop it. If I need to exact hoop, I like to use this with my grid, okay? So if I was using my 5200 with an 8 by 12 hoop, I'd just get my 8 by 12 grid out and I would just hoop it, and that's how I would do it. But this one, on my Luminaire, we're going to use our camera, or we're going to use the snowman. Okay, so if you're going to give me just a second, I'm going to have to move the camera now. Now we're going to move to the machine, okay? So I have to get things moved over here. Are there any questions so far? Is this all making sense to you? Most of you that are here tonight have the bigger machines. Not all of you, but the people that I've seen say something, a lot of you have these bigger machines. So you're going to be doing it the way I'm doing it right now. Okay, so I've got to move my camera over without unplugging anything. You get to see me rotate. All right. Get to look at my fan. Sorry, just a second, I'll move it once I have to clamp it back on my table. You get to look at the wall. Okay, get this tight so it doesn't move on me. All right, so let's bring this over here. Second, turn around. All right. Still struggling with this new arm. It's a little bit different. I have to hold it differently. There we go. All right, so you can see that I have my snap hoop on here, and I have the ring up on the top of my machine, and I have a piece of tearaway underneath of it. I'll readjust this later to make sure that it's okay. Make sure it's not attached here. There we go. Okay. So again, the orientation is going to be this way. I'm going to put my top in here. And I'm looking for that X right here. Okay, so you can kind of, hopefully you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to get that close. Now, of course, we learned a lot about these hoops last week because I learned about having to get my rulers on here and everything. So I'm going to kind of get it close so I can see that it's pretty close to the center because my needle's right there. And I'm going to try to get my hoop arranged here. Okay. And it's not going to hoop completely in the hoop. It's going to be close, though. I'm going to pull this over just a little bit so that it at least catches it on the sides. It's pretty close. So when they do this without the batting in here and the backing on, they still do this with just the piece of fabric, so you can get it done. Okay, that's pretty good. And I'm going to make sure everything's lined up. Now, it's not perfectly straight, and that's fine. I've got it kind of close. You know, I can look at my zero lines here, and it's pretty close. You need it to be pretty close just because the design is most of the size of the hoop. Okay, so just... Okay, so is everybody... Peggy says she lost me. Is everybody still able to see me? I'm still seeing myself, so... Is everybody able to see me okay? Okay. So I've got this pretty close. It's not perfect, but it's pretty close, okay? In my snap hoop. Then, this is the fun part. So, with that snowman feature... Second, I got to turn the camera. Okay? I've got my design up, and again, I want to make sure, you know, here's the top. I've got the top of my... Okay, everybody's seeing me? Good, good. Okay, so let me turn the camera here quickly. I'm still learning. This one's just different. It has to be turned differently. Okay, so up here on my on my pillow, I have, this is the top going this way, out, okay? And I've got it in the hoop. And I think my hoop's all lined up. It feels like it. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my, I've got my design in here. I'm going to take my little snowman guy. Here's my little snowman guy. Okay? And everybody always tells me, oh, I don't know how to use that. All you do is take your snowman. So here he is. And see, he's got the little crosshairs. Okay? That's the center on him. Okay? I'm going to go back over here to my machine, and where that crosshair is, which I think you can see okay, all right? I'm going to take my snowman, and I'm going to lay the snowman on the crosshairs directly, and lining up my crosshairs, because I know that was where the center was supposed to be. Okay, and I'm going to make sure, I'm going to stand up so I make sure I got the one up here. Okay, so here's my snowman. I just put him on here. And he's all stuck down. Then I'm going to go back over here to the screen, and I've got this set as if I'm going to sew it. I'm going to hit the layout button. All right? And there's a little icon that looks like a snowman. So I'm going to touch that. It says, okay, to revert to the original position. Yeah, if we'd moved it, it was going to put it back to where it was. So I'm going to tell it yes. I'm just going to hit the scan button down here. I don't know if you can see that too well, but it says scan. So I'm just going to hit that and hit OK. Make sure there's nothing underneath the hoop or behind it, because it's going to scan around and try to find the snowman. So it's over here looking for him. So it does some scanning. And then over here on the screen, it's now looking for that little snowman guy. I think he found him. Okay, now it says remove the embroidery positioning mark. So in other words, what it did, and if you look on the screen, I told you I didn't think this was super straight. And I'm not sure if I got my snowman on here straight either, so I may try this one more time. It's a little hard for me when I can't stand up very well right now. So let me pull this out so I can make sure I get it straight. We'll do it one more time so you remember how to do it. I just want to make sure I got my snowman straight, because it looked just a little crooked. There. Okay, I'll put it back on and we'll try it one more time so you remember how to get to it. So again, have it set up as if you're going to sew your design. Go to layout, or if you're on a Dream Machine, it's going to say edit where you need to set. And then you're going to hit the little snowman guy and hit OK. And then scan. And then it's going to do the scanning and find the snowman sticker. It makes doing these multi-hooped items so simple to do it this way. So it's scanning and trying to find the little snowman guy. And I may have to readjust my stabilizer. So here it is. It's finding him. There he is. It's looking for the little lines. But if you all you have is the plastic grid, that works just fine. This is very, very easy to do this, though. I've always loved the snowman because especially when I'm doing multi-hooped items, because then I can just mark where I need to have it be, and it'll just line everything up for me. So it's finding him. Okay. Okay, so it can't recognize it, and I know why. I think my paper that's under there got crooked, so we'll try it again. That sometimes happens, and the little sad man is crying. So we'll just scan again. I got I got the stabilizer out of there. I think that was what the problem was. So we'll just do another scan. Sometimes things happen. You have to be a little careful with stabilizer if it's not attached underneath. It kind of pooks up, and then sometimes with that extra height, it can't find things. I think it'll be okay this time. And what it does is it kind of moves the pattern. When it does this little like going up and down thing, it kind of moves the pattern around a little bit. So I think it's finding it now. Okay. Remove the embroidery positioning mark. Okay. So now when we look at it, see, now it looks a little straighter. See, I think my snowman was just a little crooked to begin with. So see how it looks a little straighter on the machine? But the thing is, if it wasn't straight in the hoop, it doesn't matter, because it might look like this on the machine, but it's going to be straight on your fabric as long as your snowman sticker is straight. My first time was not quite as straight as I liked it. Okay, so now we're ready to sew. We got it all lined up where we want it. I'm going to take off my little snowman, and we're ready to sew. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Did you see how easy it is to use that snowman? You basically hit a button 2 times and it does it all for you. Okay? Super easy. All right. So let me see on the instructions here. I think the first thing is the placement and tack down line for America. And I use this dark blue thread, so I'm going to put my dark blue thread in the machine. If I can get it. And I've got just bobbin thread in the machine, and I'm going to have to put my stabilizer back on, because we do need some more stabilizer. You know, when we're doing the quilt sandwich, it's fine, but we really need some more stabilizer because we are doing some quilting, or some fairly heavy embroidery. So I'm going to lift this hoop up gently, and I'm just going to slide this piece of stabilizer under here. So you don't need to put it in the hoop. But just like I had stuck it under there, and if I'd only scanned once, I think it would have been fine. But I scanned twice, so it made it a little crinkly. So I had to put it back in. Okay? So now we're ready to go. And I'm going to sew out, the first step is going to be my placement line, I believe, for the America. So I'm going to go get America here off my mat. While that's stitching. My fabric organized while it's stitching here. And I need my little iron. I've got my little iron ready to go here. Okay. So just doing my placement line. Then I think it's going to go do, yeah, it has to do a little bit more here. I'll get these little ends out of the way. And it looks nice and straight. I think I did okay. Yeah, Lisa, the snowman is so cool, and this is the way to go with this. I mean, if you've got that snowman for this kind of procedure, it's so easy. You just make your marks, and then put your snowman on. That's all you have to do. It's just so easy. And you know, the grids work. I have done hooping with grids for years, and I still have to on my older machines at the store. It works just fine. I've done it for years, but this is just so easy. Okay, so it's just getting our outline done here. I don't know why it went around this one twice, but it did. I think it's because it had to go over and get to the middle of the A at the end. But the snowman is just super easy to use. All right, so we got a bunch of little tails here, so we'll get those out of the way. Well, then it's going to go do the little dots at the end. Okay, and we'll get all these little tails out of the way. Second here, we'll get these little tails out of the way. So they don't get stuck under our design. Okay. Now, with these hoops, these snap hoops, you do need to be very careful removing this from the machine. Now, I do have to remove this from the machine because I need to go over to my ironing pad and I have to, yes, Jan, so if your snowman is straight, even if you've got it crooked, totally crooked in the hoop, like sideways, it will still straighten it up as long as there's enough room in the hoop for it to move. Does that make sense? Because if the design is too far off and it's like basically filling the hoop, then it can only just move just so far. But I've done things like tried to make it not work. Like I had something that I put it this way in the hoop, and it was small enough so that I could do it really badly and then hoop it really badly, and then it just completely was straight. So, all right, so I'm going to take this out. So when you're doing taking these hoops out, you want to be very careful not to move the top, okay? So I'm always very careful when I take these out, but I got to put this on my ironing pad over here. And I'll turn the camera so you can see what I'm doing. I've got this laying on my ironing pad next to my machine. Give me a second and I'll get the camera turned. Yeah, I'm not going to move it again. All right. Then what I'm going to do is I'm over here with my mat where my America is, and I'm going to take off the first part of America here. And I've got my little weeding tool that helps it. And America is in two pieces, just so you know. Okay, so here's my America. I'm going to take the paper off the back because we need that to come off, so in order to iron it down. But you can see why I do it this way, because boy, this one's hard to cut. You can do it in the hoop. You can trim it. It's just hard. All right, so I'm going to take this over here to America where my placement line is, and I'm going to lay this in my placement line. Okay, so you can probably see it over here. I'm going to get it in my line. And I'm going to work at this very slowly. Don't get in a hurry. Just do one letter at a time even. I want to get it completely perfectly in my line. I'm going to take my little iron. So here's that little beautiful little iron that fits in the hoops, and I'm just going to iron it down. Give it just a press, just to get it started. Okay? Then I'm going to start working the next letter. I kind of work one letter at a time because this is kind of a big applique, so you have to kind of work at it a little bit at a time. And I'm moving it over. So hopefully you can kind of see me working at it. I'm just kind of moving it over just a little bit at a time. And I'm working on the R now. So that looks pretty good. And I'm just kind of pressing it down, but then I'm going to make sure that everything's well lined up. And I got to put my glasses on. There's a little spot here. I'm not sure. I got to look at it a little closer. I think it's okay. All right. I think I'm a little bit off on my E. So I'm going to, if I heat this up just a little bit, I can push it over just a little bit. This needed to go over just a little bit to the left. All right, so then I'm going to, once I'm happy with it, then I'm really going to give it a good press with the iron so that it's down well to my fabric. And I think it looks pretty good. Okay, now you have to take your time doing these because you want it to be right inside that line. And when I bring it over to the machine, you'll be able to see better. Okay. There's another question here. Yes, Cindy, you will use that little, you can also use your laser pointer, but you'll need to use your plastic grid to line up the center. So when you go back, if you didn't get to see that part, I think you came in a little late. You'll need to use your center, but you can still do it. You just have to hoop more times. You'll have to hoop about 5 times, I think. Because I know you have a smaller machine. Okay, so now I'm going to get another piece. Let's see, let's get the star here. You know, there's that little star up there. So here's my star. Take the paper off of it. That's why I like to leave it on the mat until I'm ready to use it, because there's so many little pieces here. Then I'm going to have to rotate this thing to get it on here right. There we go. I have trouble with stars and stuff because they are not symmetrical usually. I'm going to get that laid down right on my placement line, and then I'm going to carefully hit it with the iron, not try to get my fingers. Okay. Okay, there's a little star. Then I'm going to get another piece here. This is the other end of America. Whoop, the arm hits stuck to the mat. Here's ICA. And yes, so then, like if I was using my my grids on my smaller machine, then what I would do to center this is then I would turn on my laser light, because a lot of those machines even have a laser light foot. Then you turn your laser light on so you make sure you're right there in the center, and you can move your design just slightly up and down if you need to. So yeah, so it makes it pretty easy even with a laser light. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to place it over that placement line. I'm going to carefully start ironing it down. There we go. I need to pull my hoop this way just a little bit. I've got my little ironing mat on this table, and this is long. There we go. Make sure I'm under my mat. All right, so we got that part. I think that looks pretty good. Make sure it's well adhered so it doesn't move. And then I've got those 3 little polka dots. So those little teeny polka dots, I'm going to put those on. I'm just going to do one at a time. I'm going to do the one that was closest so that I know I'm getting the right one on. I think they're all the same size, but I was careful when I did those, make sure I did them correctly. Get that one down. Let's get the second one here. Get this one. Get that one down. That's good. And then get the third one. When I bring this over to the machine, you'll be able to see it better. I'll get my little polka dot. This was so much fun. I had so much fun doing this pillow. It's just done very differently. I've learned a lot about my snap hoops and about hooping and the quilting. I just really, really enjoyed this project. All right, I think we're good. Looks like it's well adhered. Get my iron out of the way so I don't burn myself. All right. So now I'm going to very carefully, again, when you're working with these hoops, you got to be a little careful when you take them in and out of the machine. But there really is no option. I don't like to iron on my machine. You can if you put a pad underneath, but I just don't like to. So I'm going to slide this back in. Okay. All right. So you can see where I have adhered my fabric inside the placement line. I just did it very carefully. You'll have to be deliberate about it and just get it exactly right over your placement lines. Okay. Now the next step in the book is going to be a tack down line. But in this case, and what size hoop am I using, Cindy? I am using a 9.5 by 14 because I am doing the bigger one, okay? I'm just going to make sure that my stabilizer is not crooked here, underneath here. I think we're okay. But it can be done in a 6 by 10. There's just different instructions for the 6 by 10. There's a different set of instructions, and it's done the same way, just takes more hoopings, okay? Now the next step on the instructions is actually a tack down. So if you were doing if you were going to trim this in the hoop, you would have laid your fabric over that placement line, and then you'd sew down step number 2 in the machine. But if you do it this way, we do not need to sew that. We're going to skip that step this time because I already have my fabric in there, and I don't need to tack it down because the decorative stitch will go over it. So I'm not gonna do step number 2. I'm gonna skip that one since I cut it out. Okay, and now we're gonna go do some of the stars. So we're gonna do some placement lines for our stars. Okay, now the placement line, let's see, which star is it doing? It's doing the top one. I have to look at my picture, remember which one I did. Okay, so my top star, I made a lighter blue. So I'm going to put my lighter blue thread in. And these I'm going to trim in the hoop. So this is the way you would do America if you were trimming it in the hoop, okay? I just thought that was a lot of trimming, and I like to use my scan and cut for words. I often do for words. Okay, so we're going to put this in the lighter color, and I'm going to, now the other colors that we use, I gotta find on my fabrics. These were some of the other colors, so we're going to use this little blue piece that's left over from the America words. We're going to use that for another star, and then I have, these are my pennant fabrics, and also there's one pennant out of this lighter blue, but then one of the stars was out of that lighter blue. So I'm going to go ahead and use this. Took my pin out of it. So this is going to be my fabric that I'm going to use for this next applique. Got my thread in here, and I'm going to go ahead and sew out the tack down line. And the instructions for the sew out on here, they're very kind of basic. They're basically just they're just showing you what you're doing, and it's real easy though. So that was our placement line. The next step will then be we're gonna put our fabric in. This is the way we would have done America if we hadn't cut it out. I'm gonna lay this in, my fabric in, and I'm gonna do the tack down line. And then we'll trim this one in the hoop. These were so easy, I just figured, oh, I'll just trim them. Sometimes I trim some. Whoops! Now see, I didn't quite make it. So now you get to watch me rip. Aren't you glad that I do these things in front of you so you know that it happens to me too? So I'm going to have to pull this out a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. See, I need to rip. I didn't make it over here. You know, it just happens. It's hard for me sometimes with the camera in front of me to see where things are because I've got something in front of my face. So you get to watch me rip. That's okay. We'll just take it out, and then we will. I was trying to be conservative of the fabric. Sometimes it's better just to use a little extra. So we'll back the machine up and we'll do this again. There we go. Okay. I'll back it up, and then I'll make sure that I have it all covered this time. We'll just put it right there. Okay. Make sure I put it back in the machine. Okay. Now it's going to move. Okay. So we'll go back to the tack down line. Yeah, most of these pillows were done with, they have instructions for a smaller hoop, and most of the hoops, I think, were 6 by 10s if you had a smaller hoop. And then they did like 9.5 by 14s for the larger ones. Okay, so now I'm going to trim this close to the stitches. And this is the way I would have done America, but America was a little harder, so I thought it'd be easier to cut it with the scan and cut. See if I can trim this without having to take it out of the machine again. Somebody asked me last week, what else do you use your dime snap hoops for? And you can see, you can use it for anything, in any kind of sewing. I use them, you know, it just depends on what I'm doing. This, I thought it would work really easily for this project because it's already quilted, and it was just something I could get into the machine really easy. So we'll get some of these little pieces out because I have some threads in there too. But see, it happens to me too. I make so many mistakes when I'm sewing. Okay, that looks pretty good. All right, that was a really ravelly piece of fabric. Okay, then the next one's going to be over here, and that was that darker one. Now, I think let me look at my picture. I think the little stars, yeah, they're decorative stitches, and you know, I always use matching thread when the cover stitch is going to be decorative, because, or like a motif stitch, because you can often see the your tack down lines through the cover stitch. So make sure you use matching thread. So we're going to do the placement line for the second star. And the second star was that same blue. It was that little blue with polka dots on it, like the America. And you can do them any color you want, of course. I was kind of following the pattern, so. Okay, so let's see if I can get this one covered and not miss this time. I think I got it covered. Okay. And then we're going to do the tack down line. Now, if you were going to do this as a wall hanging and not a pillow, I would probably tell you, you know, you've probably got pretty fabric on the back. I would probably tell you not to put the tearaway on the back. I think you could get by with no stabilizer, because you wouldn't want to show any of that stabilizer on the back of your wall hanging. So this is quilted, and the batting acts as a stabilizer. And there's not an enormous amount of stitches in this design, even though it's large. The other thing I'd probably tell you, you might want to put matching thread in the bobbin as you're doing that, because then you can have the pretty colors on the back also, just like you were quilting it. So I think it would be okay to do that. There'd be enough stabilizer with just the batting, I think. So I'm going to have to stand up to get this one trimmed. I'll pull the hoop back a little bit. Can't quite reach. When that hoop's that big, it's hard to reach. There we go. So I'm just trimming close to the stitches on my star. And I could have cut these out also. I just wanted to show both ways in the class. So so if you don't have a scan and cut or like a silhouette cameo or some other kind of cutting device, you can just do this right in the hoop. So I wanted to do it both ways. So I'm sure I got close enough. I think I did. It's a little hard to trim with the camera. I always have trouble trimming. I like to leave it in the machine and not have to take it out. Okay. All right, so there's my second star. I'm going to put this back in carefully. Okay. Now, the next step is going to be the cover stitching. So the cover stitching on the America is next. Well, see, we didn't have to tack that down. It's already adhered, and now we're ready to do the decorative stitching. Let's see how we did with getting it on. With any luck at all, it'll nicely cover our design. And it's doing kind of a little like star pattern. It's almost like a, what do they call that? I always forget what the name of that is. It's like the little stars. What do they call that, guys? You need to help me. They always have those those designs in the Decorative Stitches too. Okay. So this is a good time for questions. Are there questions about what I'm doing? So see, this one we didn't have to tack down. It's already adhered to the fabric. And this one takes a little bit to sew out. Panda Wicking. Thank you, Deb. I can never think of, I don't know why I can't ever think of that name. So I don't know that I'll sew out all of this. I might go back and finish America later, because this does take a while. This is the thing that takes the longest, is going around it. But I wanted to do a little bit of it so you can see it, and then we'll go on and finish the design. We're doing good on time, though. So it did this inside. Now it's going to go and start the outside edge. Oh, that's right. It went down and did the other insides, and then it does the outside altogether. It's been a while since I've stitched this out, so. I did this on my vacation, because I knew it was going to take me a while to decide how I wanted to do it, so I did it on my vacation. Looks like it's hitting very well. Everything's covering nicely. If you take your time when you put this into the placement line, it really works very well. You just have to take your time, make sure I kind of go a little bit at a time. All right, and then it's going to go down and start down there. I think it's going to make its way around. Looks like it's doing well. Okay, so when we go on to the next, you have all night to watch. I don't want to keep everybody all night, but it does take a little while to stitch this out. I might go to the stars and Land That I Love part, because this part really did take a while. It's a long word, and there's a lot of stitches in it. There was about 23,000 stitches in this, so it does take a little while. With the lettering and everything, but I wanted to show this one because I wanted to make sure you saw me do the applique this way. Okay, so then while this is stitching, I'll just go on and we'll talk a little bit about the other hoopings, because it's going to be basically the same. So let me just pull this back, and I'll put the book up here. So like this is the one we're doing right now, and then for the next hooping, as you can see, then I would take my 9.5 by 14 hoop in my case, and this one actually says using your 7 by 12 hoop, so this is a smaller design. You know, I might have actually gone down to my 8 by 12 hoop just because it's smaller. It was easier to hoop, I think, then. So I think I used my 8 by 12 for this one. Then you're going to do the same thing. So the design, here's that little connector for the machine, so it's actually going to set in the machine like this. And then you're going to do the same thing. I'm going to put my snowman on this little X right here. I'm going to put it in the hoop as close to straight as I can get it. And then I'm going to line it up with my snowman. Okay? And then it's going to do these 3 pieces. Again, these are just simple applique. It's going to do the placement lines for the pennants. And then you're going to trim close to the stitches, including along the top. And then it's just going to do the satin stitching along the outside edge. So it's very simple applique. All right? And then here's a picture of the whole thing right here. So mine's going to do it in 3. And I think the smaller one, I think you have to do the pennants in maybe 3 hoopings. Okay? And then the last hooping, it says use your 5 by 7. So I did use I'm sure I did. I used my 8 by 12 and my 5 by 7 just so that it's easier to hoop. Because use as small a hoop as you can, because then it's nice and stable and it's easier. So then you're going to do the same thing. We're over here, and this is the smaller hooping. It was going to be 2 pennants. And again, can you see the holder for the machine? Of course, then it's going to go this way in the hoop, and I'm going to put my snowman on my little X, and it's going to line that up. And these all of mine lined up just perfectly along here. And then you're gonna put a piece of rickrack along the top, because there's a raw edge that shows, and you're gonna just put a piece of rickrack along the top edge, like a string that was holding the pennants up. All right, so see how easy that is? Just line up your centers, hoop it according to the orientation in the instructions, and just stitch it out. I mean, how easy is that? So we're getting around American here. I'll let it go around a little bit more so you can see a little bit better, and then I will go ahead and on to some of the other letters. I think I can understand the embroidery from now on. The hardest part is getting it hooped, and with the snowman or with your grid and your laser light, for the center, the hooping is very simple. And for those of you who do have the smaller machines, like maybe the 5200s, the 1600s, embroidery onlys, the 36, 3500s, there is an optional laser light foot that you can purchase for those machines, and then you will have the laser light. It doesn't come with those machines, but you can get it, and it really is great for the edge-to-edge quilting, for this type of thing. That I have the laser light to use. And then you just turn on the laser light. We showed this to you last week. You turn on the laser light. There's usually a little icon that looks like a foot with a W on it, and then you just touch that and it turns the laser light on. So it makes it very simple. You just have to put the foot on, and then it plugs into the back of the machine, and then it just turns on. It's so easy. So I'm going to happily embroider the rest of my design tonight. These will have edges on them, and then I did my lettering for Land That I Love in red, and then there's some little tails on your stars, and I think I did those in my metallic silver. So I've got my metallic silver. This is my dime King Star metallic silver, so I'm going to use that for that. Okay. So does everybody understand how to do the embroidery? I don't know that we really need to finish this tonight. It does take a little while, but I really wanted you to see me put this in so you could see. And I might give you a good close-up once it gets around this little area. Then you can see what it looks like when it's all edged, has the edging over the raw edges. Because it looks like it's lined up very nicely. Just take your time when you're doing that. Second here, I've got a piece of batting that insists on being under my foot. Let's get that out of there before it gets sewn in. There we go. You never know what's going to happen in live groups. Okay, so this is what it's up in this area right here, going around. I love doing applique like this, and often when I do the letters like this, and I have done that on some of my settee pillows and stuff, that when I do the lettering like this, I like to use like the E-stitch, like you would do if you were going to be doing traditional applique, machine applique, and then it covers just the edge, and then there's a raw edge on there, but then you don't have to sew it, you don't have to drive around it yourself. I like to let the machine do that for me. And you could use any color. I use my matching navy blue here, but you could use white. White would have been pretty on there. Or maybe red. I even thought about putting gold on it. So different colors would be good. And what I did with my colors, a lot of people ask me, how do you choose your colors? I kind of match my fabrics. So on this particular pillow, I didn't use many colors. I used that kind of navy blue, so I matched this. And then I used a lighter blue that matched this fabric here, and then I used a red. So on the pennants, do you hoop them or float the fabric? I did hoop them, but I just hooped my sandwiched fabric, Cindy. So I've got this quilted, like we quilted this last week, and I just hooped that, and then I just lay a piece of tearaway underneath. I feel like there should be a little more stabilizer. If you're doing this as a wall hanging, I probably would tell you not to put stabilizer under it. I just feel more comfortable with a little stabilizer. But I hooped, yes, I hooped this for the pennants as well. I'm going to do it exactly the way I did this one. And the other two or three hoopings, whatever you have to do. So I'll move up to this one up here. My mark's up here, and then there's another mark down here, and I'll do my pennants, just like I did this one. It's exactly the same. Just bring up your other design. Okay, so I've got a little surprise to show you that I'm working on for November while this is sewing, and then we'll end for the night. I'm working on something new. While this is sewing, I'm working on a quilt, and I thought you might like to see some of the blocks. I love red work, so I decided I needed to do a red work quilt. So there's Santa. I've got some of them done. A little gingerbread man, and some bells. So I've been digitizing this week. Here's a little snowman. So this will be in November. We'll do this before Christmas. And maybe in October even. Some candy cane, Christmas tree, and little stockings. Will you show that when, oh yeah, Cindy, yes, I'll do, this will be a class, it'll be either towards the end of October or the 1st of November. So, but this will be a quilt, and it's done in a small hoop, so all of you with smaller hoops will be able to easily do this. So that's my little surprise. So I'm working on something for you, all of you. Okay, so this looks like it's still going. We're doing well. I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera. And are there any questions? Does this make sense? So the next hooping, I'm just going to do the same thing. Look at the picture in the book. It gives you the orientation that you have to have it when it comes up on the machine. And then I will hoop for the pennants and do the 2 hoopings for the pennants. And they're going to be exactly the same. I'm going to trim my my appliques in the hoop for those because they were simple ones. And you could have cut them out if you wanted. I just didn't want to cut out all of it. So I just cut out the America. Okay? Does everybody know where all of the different oh, do you want me to show the pennants? I'm not going to be able to show the pennants for a little bit. I could film it. Do you want me to film it, Cindy? So would you guys like me to do that? Just film myself as I sew my other 2 hoopings? I can just turn the camera on and I'll post it on the group. Would that be okay? Then you can see me do the other 2 hoopings. I knew it would take too long to do it in one night because it takes like 40 minutes for this hooping and then the other 2 are shorter. Yes? Okay, I'll just do that. I'll just leave the camera run and film it while I'm doing the other ones, so that I don't keep you too long. You know, we've already been here for almost an hour and a half, so I don't want to keep you, but I will just film it and upload it for you if that's okay. All right. Are there any other questions? Yeah, because I'll probably finish it tonight. I got to call my dad, but I'll probably just sit here and finish it because then it's done. One more thing done, you know. So yeah, I'll just turn the camera on and I'll just film myself when I'm doing it. All right. Thank you so much for coming and sewing with me on Father's Day. I know it's Father's Day. A lot of people were busy today, but thank you so much for coming and sewing with me tonight. And then I will, like I said, I'll just film myself as I'm doing the other 2 hoopings so you can see them, and I'll just upload them to the group. So thanks, everybody. Have a good evening. Good night.